Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya, and I'm an international student studying in London. I work in Concreted Education, which is a student recruitment agency, and we help students in the UK and internationally get the perfect university and the perfect course for them.
Hi, Tanya. Thanks for introducing yourself. My first question for you is why did you choose to study abroad?
Well, I wanted to experience a global perspective in terms of education, culture, and just meeting people from all over the world. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I think getting a global experience in a professional capacity was my main reason, which I was lucky enough to do as I've landed a job as a student advisor and a marketing officer at Concreted Education.
And how would you say studying abroad has helped you personally?
Well, first of all, it taught me how to unlearn a lot of things and then learn a lot new things in terms of how to study and how to present that education in an academic capacity. It can be a little challenging because as various cultures have many different means of studying, and obviously teachers expect very different things in different countries. So we as students, we need to understand what is expected of us.
And how would you say studying abroad has helped you professionally?
Well, it helped me culturally because I finally understood what it is that people expect in the workplace and the basic cultural nuances. For example, in the UK, it's polite to say thank you and please, and it's pretty much expected of you in a workplace. Whereas back in my country, we could just go around by giving orders or taking them.
Have you faced any challenges in your process of moving abroad?
Absolutely. And it can be a dreadful process which can go on for months and months. But I would suggest to all future or prospective students that start early. This is a mistake that I made of starting with a less time frame because, first of all, there is so much documentation, I don't even know where to start. Secondly, the visa procedure. You have to have accurate documents. You have to have a bank statement of at least 1 to 6 months, depending on what country you want to study in. And there's always the language tests, there are the accommodation proofs, and many such things. The sooner you start, the better your documentation will be and the higher chances of your visa acceptance.
Are there any scholarship opportunities available to international students?
Absolutely. So many countries offer various scholarships. For instance, in the UK, there's a Commonwealth scholarship and many other government funded scholarships, but almost all the institutions across the globe offer their own scholarship as well, which is usually merit based, but also sometimes co curricular based. So if you excel in sports or you have any achievements in academics or arts or culture, even if it's in your own country, it's always a good idea to showcase this to your university and try and get a scholarship or a bursary on this basis.
What are some of the cultural differences students face when moving abroad?
Well, every culture is different in its own. No culture is good or bad, which is what certain students forget. It's just different. So, for instance, in the UK or in Germany or in France, shops shut early, which a lot of students from India or Asia overall are not used to. But if you go to Spain, they have a much more active nightlife, which can also be a plus for students moving abroad. But other than that, I think it's communication. So the more you mingle with locals, you understand what their ways are and what is expected of you as an individual.
How should students plan for finances when they are studying abroad?
Well, so this is something that I've seen in my experience as a student advisor and as a student myself, that everyone expects to land a job the minute they land in a new country, which is never the case. You cannot expect to cover your entire international education working part time in another country. you have to have at least 6 months of expenses beforehand in savings. It's always good to keep an open communication with your sponsor or your family, or if you're taking a loan from the bank, then with them. It's not impossible to land a part-time job, but it is a time-consuming process. Many countries even require you to have a government identification before you can start working. For instance, in the UK, it's NI number. So just the application and the process of receiving it can take more than 1 month. So please don't expect to have all your finances sorted once you've moved abroad, but keep a buffer of at least 4 to 6 months before you move here.
Is it difficult to find a part-time job as an international student? And do you have any tips for future or current international students who are looking for work?
So it is difficult, but not impossible, as I mentioned before. What you have to do is you have to be prepared beforehand and even start applying for jobs before you even move to the country. As I mentioned, having a government identification beforehand is always a good idea. You might not be able to get it right away, but at least once you know what it is that is required of you, you can be prepared. So, for instance, I knew that I wanted to work in the field that I'm studying, which is marketing. And I was lucky enough to land a marketing job in the UK. But a lot of students also have student jobs available on campus or can work as retail assistants or baristas, which is a much quicker way of finding a job. But my suggestion would always be to find something in your field because that helps you land a full-time job after your studies.
Tell me about your role here at Concreted Education. What do you do and how has this experience helped you?
So I work as a student advisor and a marketing officer. What I do is we help students in the UK wanting to go to university or students from abroad wanting to come to the UK or other countries like France, Germany, Spain, Dubai, USA, Australia. So we have a wide portfolio of universities that we offer, and which is why we get students from all around the world wanting to study. We assist them with the visa procedure, the application process, any scholarships or bursaries that they want to avail. And for domestic students in the UK, we help them out with the student finance procedure.
What support services do universities offer to their students?
So most of the universities that cater to international students for sure have an international students office. So here students can go and inquire about daily life, shopping, grocery stores, the basic things. But majority of the universities also offer career advice offices. So there you can go and inquire about part-time jobs, full-time jobs, and any other internship opportunities available. So with the upcoming awareness around mental health, most universities offer mental health counseling because for some students it can get really lonely or they just struggle with mental health issues that come with trying a new life out.
When moving to countries like Germany, France, or Spain, how can students bridge the language gap when studying in these sorts of countries?
So, as I mentioned before, the best way to learn a language is to always interact with locals. And if you start working there, it's always a good way of interacting with your co-workers, learning maybe a word or two every single day. Taking language classes is really helpful because in countries like France, Germany, Spain, people prefer to communicate in their own language, which is something that we as international students have to respect. But there are a lot of apps that are available that you can literally start learning a language at the convenience of your home, even before you've moved to the country, which is something that I always suggest to all the international students.
How should students deal with health emergencies when they're living in a different country?
So it's pretty much compulsory for all the students to have a health insurance before they move to a new country, and it's pretty much a visa requirement. So whenever you move, you make sure that you register with the nearest health center or a GP if it's in the UK. A lot of students sometimes face unforeseen health circumstances. In that case, it's always good to have an emergency contact in the country that you're living in because sometimes it might take a while for the university or your accommodation to contact your family members who are living in a different country. So make sure that you have a friend or an acquaintance or maybe a distant relative who's on the speed dial all the time.
What are some of the main documents required for studying abroad?
So first of all, it has to be an acceptance letter from a university and it has to be a university that gives out sponsorships, because only then you can apply for a valid student visa. The next is the financial means. Most countries require somewhere between 2 to 6 months of a certain sum, which will cover your tuition fee and your living expenses to be in your bank account. Now, the bank account has to be either yours or somebody that's sponsoring you. But you need to make sure that the sponsor is linked to you in one way or the other. They can be a family member or an acquaintance. It really depends on the institution and the country that you're going to. Next is the proof of accommodation, because for a government to give you a visa, they need to know that you will have an accommodation before you reach the country. The main reason is that they want to take care of your well-being and want to safeguard your interests. Other than this, as I mentioned, a health insurance is pretty much compulsory, and some countries even require an English proficiency test wherein you have to showcase that you can communicate very well in English. Most countries accept IELTS, some accept Duolingo. There are multiple tests. Your institution will let you know what it is that they accept.
Can you explain a little bit about the visa process? Is it difficult, and what are some of the stages involved?
So it's different for different countries, and it also matters what your home country is. So if you want to study in Dubai, then the application process is much easier. But if you want to study in a country like US, it gets more complex. So it starts with application into a university. Once you get accepted, then you have to collect your visa documentation. You have to maintain a bank balance of a certain amount, which will show your living expenses and your tuition fee. Once that is done, if you are eligible for any scholarships or bursaries, you have to fill out those forms. And it always happens after the application into the university and not before. You have to make sure your passport is up to date and you have updated passport size pictures and any additional documents like IELTS, TOEFL, or other English proficiency tests. After that comes the visa interview procedure, wherein you're supposed to go either to an embassy or an organization like VFS, wherein they handle the entire visa process for you on behalf of the embassy. Post that, you have to submit your biometric data and then just wait for the visa to come. Once that happens, you have to make sure you have a checklist ready of everything that you will need before moving abroad. Now, this includes documents, this includes any shopping you want to do, your accommodation, everything. Now, once you arrive in the new country, the first thing you need to do is pick up your residence cards and let the institution know that you have arrived in the country and conduct your registration on university campus. Now, that's the whole visa procedure. It seems easy, but it can be a little daunting because it's not a short procedure. It takes quite a few months. And I just have a few tips for all students that are planning to move abroad or are in the process of. First, start early. And I cannot emphasize this enough that you need to start at least 10 months before you plan on moving. Second is stay organized. Keep a checklist either on your phone, on paper. Have a checklist, go one by one, and make sure that all the points are ticked. Third is follow instructions. The universities have very clear instructions on what you need to do, what documentation to submit, and what to do after that. And even government websites are very clear on what is expected of you. All you need to do is just follow those instructions. And the last is seek help if needed. All the universities have admission offices which are very helpful. If you're going through an agency like ourselves, we are with you at every step of the way, from starting of the application to the visa procedure to the acceptance and the final moving stages. So seek help, seek assistance. We would be more than happy to help you, and so will the universities.
Thank you, Tanya, for sharing your experiences. I'm sure that'll be really helpful for our international students and some of our students who live here as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.